top story tonight, Illinois is bringing a federal competition program to the state level in an effort to prevent hate in high schools. Taylor Fleming joins us in the studio with more on what this means.
Lizzie, Invent to Prevent is a national competition put on by the Department of Homeland Security. Illinois officials liked what they saw in Washington, D.C., so they are teaming up with Southern Illinois University Edwardsville to create a statewide competition. Each high school participating in Illinois Invent to Prevent will receive $1,000, which students will then use to create a program designed to stop targeted hate and violence.
They are not made by a bunch of adults sitting around telling students, here's what your experience is, and here's how we should tell you how to make things better. These are students expressing what their experiences are.
The initial pilot program is for 5 high schools. Invent to Prevent leaders say that they are committed to having schools from throughout the state of Illinois in the program. It will run from January to May next year. The second session, beginning in fall 2025, will expand to 20 schools. During the project, students will be advised by experts on targeted hate and violence, but the project they create and implement will be their own.
So myself and another professor will be available as coaches to provide some specialized insight, but we're really just looking forward to seeing what students envision and design for themselves.
After students put their program into place, they will measure how effective it is. Then, schools can participate in a competition at SIUE in May. Selected teams may be chosen to compete at the national level. Schools interested in participating can reach out to the Illinois Office of Homeland Security or Adventure Partners, a group managing the project. The pilot program begins in January. Even though only 5 schools will be picked for the first session, leaders say that schools shouldn't be discouraged from applying. They want students from different regions of the state to learn from each other in May. Lizzie?